We're live. Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Andrew Barry and I'm Ginger Meek Allen, and I'm here with my friend Andrew Barry, and we are excited to be back on Blab. It's been a little bit of a break.
I've missed you. I've missed it. I've missed us chatting. I've missed everyone partaking, and I'm quite excited for this evening.
Oh, me too. Me too.
Sad. That's really sad, though, isn't it? That shows the sort of life that I lead.
Oh no, I'm offended now. Oh no, me too. I think it's a good thing. It's been a crazy, wild season from the holiday. I think our last one was the holiday season, and we were talking about launching the Metalsmithing Mastermind.
Yes.
And we have since done that, and it is going really well, I would say.
Very good. I'm intrigued to see everyone's answers to the challenges we are putting together. So it's very good. Everyone's working together. Absolutely brilliant. Exactly what we're after.
Yes, and it seems like there are a lot of what we call ahas, moments of, oh, I just figured that out. And that's awesome to see. It's been really, really cool to see that happen. We have asked Mary Duggan to come in with us this time. We are going to be talking about different perspectives on wholesale. And we are both goldsmiths and jewelers, and with sort of different business models and different ways of doing things. And today we want to scratch the surface on the topic of wholesaling your jewelry. It's a big topic. And let me start by saying that I am not an expert in it. I am new to it. I have been working for about 10 months on my collection and just completed the first trade show for me, and I have another one coming up in just a few weeks, and I've learned a lot. And Andrew, your perspective is different.
Yeah, you've been chucked into the deep end, whereas we have put together a couple of collections over the years, and we enlisted the help of an agent to carry the range, to go out to sell for us. So we can stay in our workshop and they go out and they get the orders for us. Two different approaches. I'm not saying which one is right, because I don't think either one is right. Various costs involved with both. One is very personal, one is very impersonal. Depends on what you're selling, I think. Yeah.
Well, and it depends on you and how you're wired and what's right for you. And even if whatever path you choose, the first question is whether wholesale is a good fit. I would say, because there are lots of ways to sell your work, and that's one of them. So shall we find Mary and bring her in?
Yeah, Mary, are you there?
Mary, if you're here, we want go ahead and just call in on that open seat. There she is.
Ah, there, Mary.
Hi.
Hiya.
How are you?
Good evening.
Good, thank you. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you were willing to come in and help us talk about this great big topic, wholesale.
About which I know very little.
But you've done a show already, and you've got another show coming up in a fortnight's time.
I have, yes.
And it'd be great to hear what you have to say as well, and your experiences, and sort of how you prepared for it, and how you feel it's going.
It's at the moment I'm full on getting a small collection together. I think I made a cardinal mistake after my first trade fair, which was I sold all the work I had.
Oh,
which was really great, but it means that I've got to make up another load of stuff, but not in the vast quantities that Ginger had on her amazing booth, and that looked really, really beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Mine is tiny. The booth is only 2 meters by 1 meter, and so the table's going to be about a meter, maybe not even a meter. About 90 centimeters. So I don't have to make up a huge amount. And that's something actually that's really important to take into account if you're feeling nervous. If you're doing a retail fair, you need loads of stock.
Yeah.
If you're doing a trade fair, you just need examples of your
Samples,
work.
yeah.
And actually, when there's a trade fair coming up that I'm really looking forward to in April. It's in Harrogate, which is in the north of England, and it's the British Craft Trade Fair, which is solely for handmade work.
Nice.
That's going to be really something. People make up very, very small amounts for that. And also, I noticed that there were some people who didn't, and their booths looked really crowded, and it was hard to get a sense of what they were doing. And the ones that looked best actually gave their work space to breathe and set it out really beautifully. So that's what I'm telling myself. My work is going to have space to breathe.
White space is just as important in a composition.
Yeah. So for those who are just watching, Mary did a trade show at Olympia. It was is it September last year, Mary?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
September last year. And your first one, was it?
It was, yeah.
Okay.
Why not jump in at the deep end?
And did you feel that it was a success, or you sort of building upon your past experience, or how did it go? Was it nerve-wracking? Was it exciting? Or tell me a lot about it, because I'm really excited about this. You see,
it was all of those. It was absolutely terrifying. I think a lot of us will recognise the feeling of I shouldn't be here. I'm not good enough. People are going to tell me that I'm not good enough. And it wasn't like that at all. Oh, and I thought it was going to be really snobby and horrible, and there'd be lots of models, and there were lots of models. I saw real life people wearing Louboutin shoes, which was incredible, and walking as well. Which was but the atmosphere was lovely. It was incredibly supportive. And I was amazed at the range of jewellery that's at these kind of trade shows, because my work is very much handmade. It looks handmade. It's supposed to look handmade. And there were quite a few people selling work that is one-offs, handmade, limited editions, and of course the big players as well.
Yeah,
selling stuff that where production goes into thousands and thousands and thousands of units, and everybody coexisting really happily.
Yes, and everyone is so friendly that everyone will just walk along and say hello, and then you see me then come along and you go, oh my God, no.
It was lovely to see, because I kind of didn't really know anybody there. But I've made friends. I've kept in touch with some of the jewellers that I met, and in fact one of them is going to be at the NEC in Birmingham, so I'm really looking forward to seeing her again.
Sure. And that's the next show that you're doing in a couple of weeks' time, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. Which I think might be even bigger than International Jewellery at Olympia.
It is, yeah, because they got 2 halls.
So that will be interesting.
Have you been to the NEC show before as a spectator?
No, the last time I was at the NEC was when I was at college and I went to see Bruce Springsteen.
Well, he may not be there this time, I'm afraid.
No.
We'll see what Ginger can do for us. See if you can give him a call, see if he can come over.
I'll call him up. I can just run by New Jersey and
yeah. It's no distance at all. So in terms of success, I wasn't expecting anything very, very big. I just wanted to find out what it was like and get my face out there. So I made contact with a small number of people who are my ideal customers, people who have small independent galleries who focus on selling handmade work.
Yes.
And one of those, I was in touch with them before Christmas, and they were very keen to start carrying my work in the new year. But they're in Hebden Bridge. And any of you who know the UK will know that Hebden Bridge was one of the places that got flooded.
Oh, no.
And their shop was one of the ones that got flooded.
Oh.
So they've just got all on to get cleaned out and redecorated and goodness knows what. So I'll hold back
That's
there.
a shame.
It's rotten. It's really difficult for a lot of traders, but local traders have been really pulling together and supporting each other, so they will come back okay.
Oh, bless. So sorry, go on.
So I think I gained some really useful experience in how to talk to people, how to share the story of my work with people, and that comes with practice, I guess. I learned other useful things, like I did not need nearly as many price lists as I had printed. Do not get 1 million price lists printed at Staples. You will have to take out a second mortgage to do it. So I'll be a lot more circumspect with that.
So did you find that because you were in a little designer section, weren't you, where there were a lot of designers like yourself, did you find that you got any of the big companies, sort of people like Argos coming around, or people from QVC or anything like that coming around your booths, or was it just primarily gallery owners?
It was gallery owners and a lot of college lecturers and students as well.
Okay.
Sort of checking out what's developing in jewellery. The only big store I had visit was a junior buyer from Phoenix.
Okay.
That was it. So I think my stuff really, I can't see it working for QVC or.
I just wasn't sure whether they were going to come around and say, okay, that's great, but can you supply us 1,000 of those and 2,000 of those and that sort of thing, or was it was just purely because of the designer area that you were in? It was just gallery owners, and they knew what they were going to come to see, and you were happy with that.
Though I have been thinking about, well, what would I do if somebody said, that's great, how could you do really big quantities? And some of my designs wouldn't work.
Yeah.
The whole point of them is they are hand forged, and you can't do it with a machine. But then there are other parts of the designs that I thought, well, when I spent 2 hours the other day piercing out a brooch, and I thought, I could get this. There are various ways of doing this, like laser cutting or casting. And I might, for the sake of my sanity, explore that anyway.
Yes.
Having pierced the brooch and then doming it this evening, managed to break one of the crossbars. And there are some of the crossbars which it doesn't matter. I can just say, okay, I'm taking that bar out. That's fine. But it was one of the ones that I couldn't remove. But I repaired it. Yeah. So come and have a look at it and see if you can see what
because from what you were saying then, you're very much a handmade type of jewelry, and I think something when it comes to wholesale, you have to decide right from the start, what am I going to do? Am I going to be producing one-off items that I'm going to produce in sort of small quantities, or am I going to be sort of producing sort of original masters and then getting them lost wax cast either by yourself or by another company, and you're going to go down the route of going down the wholesale side of mass production? So from what you were saying, I suppose the majority of pieces are going to be one-offs, handmade, which is what I think you should actually stick to.
Right. In the U.S. too, the shows have different areas within the same show, and I think that's what I'm hearing too for you is. And then there are shows that only the whole show is handmade work. The one that I'm doing in Philadelphia in a few weeks is I'm in the high design. They call it high design jewelry, and then there's another section called handmade jewelry. And they make the distinction that anything where your wholesale price point is above $80, if the bulk of your collection is wholesale prices above $80, then you belong in high design. If the bulk of your collection is lower price points, then we put you in handmade jewelry. There's one of the biggest shows in the U.S. is in New York, and at New York Gift, the handmade section, and then there's the personal accessories section. And it all just depends. I think there's a lot of research to be done when you're going into something like this on where you fit,
Yes.
And because when I look at the Philly show, it says handmade jewelry. It sounds like that's where I belong, but my work is too expensive for that. And so,
Yeah.
you know,
It's because so like where Mary is, sort of on the fringes of that designer section, there are designer jewelers like Lucy Q and quite a few of the other ones who class themselves as British made and British designed, but it's all mass manufactured abroad,
right.
which, yeah, okay, they're on the fringe of the handmade designer section, but they're not. They are mass produced.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Birmingham this time, they've got a small design section that is specifically for people like me who are British and who are making their stuff in the UK.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be really interesting to see how that pans out.
And that needs to be a definite borderline between people like yourself and the mass-produced British designers who farm it out to the Far East. Like,
because what you don't want is to be in a booth and have the person beside you with a similar looking earring that's made in China.
Yeah.
There's no way we can compete with that price-wise.
No,
Absolutely,
this is what we need to think about when you're saying, is my jewelry suitable for wholesale or not, as well. We're not going to go down the. You're never going to try and compete with the Far Eastern design, cast and made pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So as we were saying before, it's got to be personal.
Yeah, we have a question from Shelley about, it's for Mary. What is your overall cost layout to do one of the shows? Can you give us?
Oh, it's painful. For one of the big ones like international jewelry or jewelry and watch, you're looking at around £1,000 for the smallest booth. That's 2 meters by 1 meter, and then you pay for absolutely everything else. If you want a plug socket, you pay for a plug socket. If you want the display stand, you pay to hire that. If you want a chair to sit down on, you pay to hire that. You have to factor in all of the publicity if you want to buy advertising, which I have done. I haven't spent a huge amount. Yeah, I'm in there twice.
Yes.
That worked well for me. I paid for inclusion in the directory section, and then I got a free mention in the bit about British Born and Made, which was really great.
Yeah.
And on the back of that, I got some massively reduced advertising in the show guide, which was really good. You have to factor in things like if you don't live locally, you're going to have to pay for your accommodation, your travel.
Oh yeah.
It mounts up. So IJL, I probably spent the thick end of 2,000. It was a lot of money. The Birmingham one is not as expensive. And the British Craft Trade Fair is, I think it's about £700 for a small booth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a much smaller affair. That's a showground in Harrogate, and it's a fraction of the size.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And you can for us here, I know that I can, if I'm driving to the show, even though I had to pay for accommodations when I got there, I loaded my own chair, my own, I had to, and in the booth fee includes 1,000 watts electricity, 1 chair. Like different shows do it different ways. If I want to rent lights from them, they don't provide lighting. I had lighting from my gallery, so I took it with me. And I was driving, so I could do that. A lot of artists will pack and ship freight loads of the whole contents of their booth, and ship it there, and you hope it gets there. There were artists around me who were from all over the country. The show was only for American artists, and there were artists directly across from Rhode Island, Oregon, Santa Fe, San Francisco. They were from everywhere, and they didn't have the option that I had to carry everything with me. So anything that they they had to ship or rent from the exhibition company. So it can, in the US, I mean, the show, it depends, you know. New York is like $6,000. The booth fees are shifting here, but you know, 1,800 to 2,500 for a regular show. And that's just the fee. And you hope that the show promoters then use that to advertise the show and get the buyers in there and all that. And I'm learning that sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So there's a lot that's out of your control. But it, you know, and there are some who say that the trade show model is a dying model, that's not the future now that artists have the ability to directly connect with their buyers. But on the other hand, I know that if I had not gone to that show, I talked to the Smithsonian Museum buyer. I talked to Georgia O'Keeffe Museum in Santa Fe. I talked to gallery owners. I talked to, I mean, there were some big names there. And when else am I going to get an opportunity in front of them? So
exactly.
You could one by one.
And
but will they see you? You can't bring them up and say, "Hello, I want to come and show you my jewelry." Are they going to see you? They're going to say, "Well, join the queue."
Yeah. I think some of it is that the fact that you're even there, you know, that you were able to get it all together and afford to be there and to be able to say, here's what I do, that alone separates you from a lot of other people who may make wonderful work, but are just not able to do that yet. And so I think that's part of it, is that it's sort of a, what do you call it? Like a filter for them when they're looking for new work, because, you know, here's the thing, like, we are the makers, you know, the world, technology. I mean, there's never going to be a real substitution for what we do. The trick is to find the way to get it out into the world, and wholesale may or may not be a good fit for you, you know. I didn't even care about it for 20 years, and now here I am doing it. And it's interesting to be the new kid on the block when I've been doing something as long as I've been doing it. You know? Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't have thought of doing trade fairs. I mean, I'd considered trade fairs, but I had been thinking not for another, I don't know, couple of years, if then. And it was Christine Kane's fault entirely. She challenged me to go out of my comfort zone, and I was saying, well, I'm not ready, and my stuff's not right. And she said, how do you know? You haven't applied. The bargain was that I would apply and see what happened. And then they offered me a booth. So
it's fantastic.
And that's a consideration, that if your stuff really isn't right, the organisers have their own reputation to think of. So they're not going to show stuff that really doesn't work.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I was really glad that she pushed me. And yeah, I did wonder, sort of, why am I here? And other jewellers I know whose designs, you know, technically they're light years ahead of me. Why aren't they here? And I thought, well, maybe they just haven't got a bit of spare capital knocking around. And maybe they haven't got a coach who's given them a real shove in that direction. And it's
always one coach, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what's inspired you to do the NEC now? Have you got the bug for it, or?
Well, that was when I was applying for IJL, I noticed the one at the NEC, and I sort of thought, well, what the hell? I'm applying for one, I'll apply for both. And actually, IJL, when I applied, said they were full. and the jewellery and watch got back to me quite quickly and said, yeah, we'd love to have you. So I thought, oh, great, well, Birmingham will be my first one. And that, I felt quite positive about it. I lived in Birmingham for 3 years. It's not far from where my family come from. So it's a city I know quite well. So I thought, oh, that's a good sign. And then IJL got back to me quite short notice and said, we've had a cancellation. Would you like to take a booth?
Fantastic.
So I thought, yeah.
That's brilliant. We've got a couple of questions coming in. Shelley has asked, have the shows paid off in future sales?
Not yet, no. I wouldn't expect them to. This is a long-term investment.
It is, yes.
I think if I can recoup over the next sort of 3-4 years, I'll be pleased. I think I'm lucky. I can sink that money into my business at this point. And then hopefully as the business grows, I'll be able to afford to do more things like this. I think also if I'd waited, I probably wouldn't have the money. Some of this is redundancy money that I'm putting into the business.
Sure.
But I think it will pay off in the long term because I'm getting my face out there. I'm getting known. Well,
this is it. It's especially as within this. This is the preview guide to the fair that Mary's in now in a couple of weeks' time, and you're in here a couple of times. Whether you're paid to go in here or whether it's free, that's beside the point. People can actually see you. There's a little example there. One of your bracelets there.
Yeah.
Fantastic. This came out to me here. This is going round. And it's just great. Absolutely. I'm just trying to find your other one as well. Carry on talking a minute. I'll find it in a minute.
So there's another question about, did I get any help from my local enterprise agency? I wish. No. A couple of years back, local councils were being really quite generous and supportive. And I know several people who they paid their entire booth fee for BCTF, but they're not doing. I'm not surprised. Councils have had absolutely massive budget cuts, so
there's also
really lucky to get funding from them now.
Yeah, there are in the U.S. there are arts grants that artists will apply for to do something like this. United Arts Council has some artist development grants. There are local. I have a friend in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I forget whether it's I think it's the state of Indiana has grants that are $10,000 artist enrichment grants that artists compete for. I've also seen a number of artists who have done Kickstarter campaigns and other types of crowdfunding to allow them to expand their businesses in this way. That's another approach that people do take. And I think I want to just pause on one thing that I picked up on what you said, Mary, about how if you'll be pleased if you can recoup this in 3 to 4 years. I think it's so important to go into a venture like this with a long-term approach. And it's difficult to do sometimes when you're new and you're putting all this money out and you're putting all this energy out. It's not only the money. I mean, this is a big thing. And to be able to do that with a mind for the long term and not go, okay, I've just spent $3,000. I need money back. You need to not be in that desperate of a state when you launch into something like this. There's I think Kathy asked a question about the difference between, it sounds like basically what she's asking is the difference between wholesale and retail, and the value of trade shows versus art festivals or craft fairs in which you don't need to do wholesale pricing. I mean, I think you have to realize that this is a whole, like for me, I do custom work in retail, and I've been doing that for decades.
Yeah.
This is a whole different division of my company. Wholesaling is a completely separate, different animal. Yes, it's all about the jewelry, but it's just so different. is what I'm finding. I mean, one of the initial challenges that I had that I didn't expect was learning that, Ginger, you think like a custom jeweler. Because I've been doing custom, and that means that when I design something, I'm only going to make it once. So I can make it as complicated as I want. Whereas for wholesale, you can't do that. You have to be thinking about every single process. And just like you're talking about spending 2 hours piercing something, so you could wholesale that design, but you got to factor in the 2 hours of piercing every single time. And let's say somebody wants 150 of those. How many hours is that? That's a lot just on the piercing part. So it's just different.
Yeah, I hope to God nobody wants multiples of that. I would cry.
So you put that in the collection or not, is what I'm saying.
But you made a really interesting point about wholesale pricing and the difference between trade fairs and retail fairs, because I think if you're going to a craft fair, what have you, you should still be pricing with wholesale in mind so that you're reaching an appropriate price point. Otherwise, you're underselling, and you're doing yourself no favours, and you're doing the creative community no favours either.
Right.
Undercutting people is not a good model.
You have to stand by your work and price it accurately.
Yeah.
So you get, even if you sell at retail or at wholesale, you still make money.
Right.
Absolutely. And I priced my work like that from the beginning.
And that's important.
Which I think is really helpful, because even at a craft fair, it is not that unusual for somebody to come up and say, actually, I have a gallery, I would really like to carry your work. And I have got three galleries that way. People
really?
coming up.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what would happen in that moment if your retail prices are actually wholesale prices?
You've got a big problem then. But no, because I'd had the because before this happened, I'd had the experience at IJL, so I knew what my wholesale prices were.
Right.
I didn't know them like off by heart, but I was able to give an indication of what the wholesale prices were, and that was fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you've come up with your price, your wholesale price, so you make money on that. Do you then go to the gallery owner and say, well, this is the wholesale price, I suggest you sell it for X amount?
Yeah.
Or do you
I give them the wholesale price and a recommended retail price.
Cool.
Now it's up to them if they charge the RRP.
Yeah.
And I will say this too, they do, like, if you are also selling on your own website, for example, the same piece, and they will look, and the worst you can do is undercut your galleries by selling something yourself for less than that price.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a really good way to put yourself out of business, and then you wouldn't have to worry about this thing at all.
No, that's really disrespectful to the galleries.
Yeah.
So when you decided to start the wholesale side, did you say, well, I'm going to brand it as Contrary Mary? Am I going to supply boxes? Am I going to supply any sort of point of sale? Or hadn't this sort of like crossed your mind before you started?
I'd already branded myself as Contrary Mary, and I had been my first retail outlet, which I'm still in, is a craft cooperative, and so I decided that if I was actually going to get myself in a shop, I had to take it seriously, and I had to think about how I was going to brand myself.
Yeah.
What the general look was going to be, how I was going to package stuff. Now my packaging has really, really changed over time. When I first started, there are the little pillow packs that you get wedding favours and stuff in. They're cheap as chips. You just black pillow packs, look really smart with some black tissue paper. You can then get Avery labels and print your logo onto a label, stick it onto the pillow pack. Looks really nice. Always put a business card in the pillow pack, that kind of thing. Yeah. And then gradually I've gone up to having, rather than pillow packs, having proper boxes. And I've just actually had a consignment of really nice packaging from, it's an English company called the Tiny Box Company. Most if not all of their stuff is recycled. So you've got a nice story there about environmentally friendly packaging. And they do lovely foil printing. So I've got lovely black boxes with my logo in silver. Nice. And it's worth thinking about, having a nice logo, having a good name. And I'm in the process of applying to have my logo and my name trademarked.
Okay.
So, question for you, Mary. Do you find that the galleries want to use packaging with your branding on it?
Not necessarily, no.
Because I would.
Yeah, I was just having that conversation with a gallery this morning, and she said no, she provides her own packaging. Some of them like to have a uniform look, so that's fine. You're going to need your packaging for when you're doing retail fairs anyway.
Yeah.
So I want to share a resource. Dee has asked a question about how do you find what the best shows are, and in the UK I have no idea. But here in the U.S., I can tell you that there are some good places to look. There's a website called Zapplication. And then there's another one called Call for Entry Cafe, and those have all the shows listed. And most of the shows now, not most, but many of the smaller shows will use websites like that, and you actually submit your application through that website. So I was just on there last night looking through hundreds and hundreds of sort of like local craft fairs and that kind of thing. And those are mostly going to be retail shows, though. And one of the things I'm finding is that now that I've built this booth that I can take around and that I'm set up for the travel show model, I think I am going to add some retail shows, and I haven't done retail shows in years. I used to do them all the time. That was how I started my business in the first place. But because I have a brick and mortar business, I haven't done that. And but now that I have a booth, I'm thinking, why not? Yeah. So Zapplication, Call for Entry, and then the larger shows in the U.S. have their own application process through their website. The other thing I would say is that there are a couple of groups on Facebook that are artists who do shows, and they'll come back from the show and do a review. And that's a really good way to find out about a show, because if you're just looking on the show website, they're going to tell you only the good stuff, right? But if you have the opportunity to talk to other artists who have done it, I find that to be really helpful. And you can learn a lot more than what the show people are going to tell you.
Yeah, there's a localish network called Craft Soup, which covers all of Yorkshire, which is most of the UK, let's face it. We're the biggest county, we're the best county. That has a lot of chat about different shows, what they're like, how well organised they are. Really, really useful information.
Mm-hmm. Mary, we lost the video on you.
Sorry?
We have sound on you, Mary, but we don't have a picture anymore.
All right.
No problem.
I don't know why, because it was fine.
No, I have no idea.
Okay.
Technology is not my friend.
Okay.
You can carry on talking.
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Yeah.
I've got a question there about, did I send an invite to selected retailers? No, I didn't. I should have done. And I got cold feet.
But these sort of things you're going to pick up, you're going to learn for the next show. You can learn from experience and do what you think did best, and don't do what didn't work, basically. So it's always a work in progress, like everything else when it comes to life.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think that's something I probably will do for BCTF.
Okay.
But
Um,
there's quite a lot of research involved in that, in finding the galleries that are likely prospects. And then I don't know if I would completely want to approach them cold.
right. So for me,
But
I met some sort of big names and others who I'd never heard of before, but I think would be a good fit for me. I met them at the first show, and so now that I have their names, I'm going to send invitations or just keep in touch with them going forward. They may not have been ready to order right now, but that doesn't mean that later on they won't be ready. And I think it's just like any other kind of marketing that we do as entrepreneurs. You want to stay top of mind. You want to keep your your name coming up
yeah.
for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And even if you just approach the galleries with a little, you can buy these little postcards. You could have a couple of images on what you do, and a little something saying, "I'm at the local show," or put the show on it, or the address on it, the time on it. Come and say hello. At least then galleries can see what you do, and if there's a local show that's near to them, they're bound to be able to be on the lookout. There we go. Exactly. They're bound to be on the lookout. Yeah, they're bound to be on the lookout for new items to freshen their galleries and freshen their displays. So by actually physically approaching them, they'll see your card, and they'll make an effort to come and see you. So at least you've broken down that initial barrier straight away.
One of the things that I did for the show is I created these packets, and there's a lot of information in here, but I included this little card that has my name and my booth number for the next show that I'm doing. So you're always like looking ahead at what's coming up next. So again.
Oh yes, that's a really good point, because I can drip feed about BCTF while I'm in Birmingham. That's an excellent idea.
Right, because the wholesale buyers, a lot of them, the ones who go to the shows, they go to all the shows, and there's some talk here in the U.S. about trying to get all of our 3 main shows back to back, so that a buyer can make one trip and come to all of them. I think I don't know. I'm too new to have an opinion really about whether that's a good idea or not. But it's just marketing. I mean, if you think about all the things you've learned about marketing, it all applies, right? Who's your ideal client? How do you know if a venue is a good fit for you? What does that perfect venue look like? My work isn't going to belong in, I don't know, a bait and tackle shop or whatever, So,
but it's good. It's good the fact that you're not just sitting at your bench, just doing what you've got to do. It's good that you're getting out there, trying to get more business, trying to gain more exposure for yourself personally, not some exposure for the brand as well. So it shows you're not just sitting on your laurels and just getting on with what you got. You're playing an active part in trying to increase the business as well.
Right. The other thing I would say that we haven't talked about is, and Mary, I would love to know your opinion on this. I wish I could see you. But we have, there are websites that are, all they are is password protected, sort of secret marketplaces for wholesale buyers. And this particular show, the American Craft Retailers Expo, when you are accepted into this show, you get a month's membership on wholesalecrafts.com, which is a website that boutique owners, gallery owners, museum buyers, all of them will go to buy directly from artists, and the artists will put their wholesale collection up on the site. It's kind of like Etsy for wholesale, put it that way, but nicer. Yeah. And so there are others, and now that my name is kind of getting into this wholesale arena, I'm starting to be approached by people who have these websites, and they're saying, we want you on our website, and you of course have to pay money for that privilege. Do you have anything like that you've considered?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we do have I'm sure we do have an equivalent, but I wouldn't know what it was.
No, I don't know.
Well, I
Certainly,
would imagine that.
Each of the big the the three trade fairs that I'm doing, you have a very detailed portfolio on their website, which buyers will use to plan their visit. And that information, I think, for all of them, is then there for 12 months. So
Okay.
it's a showcase for you for the rest of the year. So that's pretty useful. But no, I don't think we have any other kind of wholesale equivalent. Or if we have, it's a really well kept secret.
I don't know about it, no.
Well, the wholesale, the acre version, the wholesalecrafts.com. I mean, I know a number of people who are on there. And one of the years ago, I sold wholesale to a boutique for these earrings that I used to make. And she was the one who told me about that site. So they've been around for a really long time. And so I had a retailer telling me this is where she goes to the handmade stuff. So, and it might be something that is open to anybody internationally even. I'm not sure, but interesting. Shelley asked a question about how do you go about researching galleries to approach? That's a good question. And I think it's...
The internet's a fantastic thing for that, isn't it?
It is. And here's the thing, having owned a gallery, not all of them are, what should I say, as solvent as others.
Shelley actually worked in a local gallery, so she has first-hand knowledge when it comes to that.
Yeah, and I made the decision that I don't want to be in any kind of consignment arrangement. That's a lot of people do start out that way, or they run their whole business that way, where you give the gallery the work, they show it for you, and they don't pay you anything until it sells. And that's fine. It's a lot of people do that. I don't know. What are your thoughts about that, guys?
It's something that you really got to think about when you start right at the beginning, isn't it? If you're doing mass production, and say you're going down the route of getting a company to do the castings for you, well, then you have to outlay so much money, say in January, for say casting grain to get the jewelry made. To then, for instance, if you have a rep or an agent, they sell that perhaps the next month. So then you've already got a whole load of money outlaid already, and it could be another 2 or 3 months before you get your money again. So it's a hell of a lot of money that is outlaid for like 4 or 5 months. And it's likewise with galleries. You can be putting your heart and soul into a piece and all this money, and they could well have thousands of pounds worth of piece of jewelry, and you're not getting paid for it until they sell it. And it's something that you have to factor into your costs as well.
Yeah.
Or do what you're doing, Ginger, and get the money up front.
Right. The only time
if you could do that in this country, that would be brilliant. But the majority of people are not quite sure what sort of arrangement Mary's got. But a lot of companies now are having payment 30 days from invoice date.
Yeah,
that's common, not just in jewelry and stuff like that. I think that was common across companies. Certainly, when I'm not doing this, I do consultancy work for public sector organisations, and they follow a 30-day rule. I've got different arrangements with different places, and there are some interesting. There's a range of models, because certainly I've accepted, I'm new, nobody knows me from Adam, I'm going to need to work on a consignment basis for a while yet, and then review it. So I'm quite happy to let somebody have a small collection that's not going to kill me to pull together, that the the material and labour costs aren't going to be huge, but my stuff is out there in a shop in front of customers.
Yeah.
But we also have a shelf rental model. I don't know if you have that in the States.
We do, actually.
Yeah, and that can work really well.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, I have some stuff in a really lovely jeweller's shop in Sheffield. That's run by a jewellery designer who graduated just a few years ago, and she's managed to attract a few localish jewellery designers. So the shop's a lovely model. Part of it is a real traditional, old-fashioned high street jewellery shop that does repairs and sends you watches off to be fixed and stuff like that, but also sells designer jewellery.
Mm-hmm.
And she does it on a shelf rental basis, and her rental costs are very, very low, and her commission is very low as well. So that's a really nice place to be in. And when I visited, the quality of the jewellery she was selling was excellent. So I was with some jewellers I know, and I thought, oh yeah, really happy to be in with them. Other places, yeah, they are buying small quantities. But I'm mainly working on a consignment basis at the moment.
Well, I think you make a really good point in that it gets your work out there, and as you're learning back to the question about how do you find the gallery that's the right fit. I mean, and sometimes the gallery isn't sure if you're the right fit, and so this is a way for them to show your work without any kind of expense associated with that. The shelf rental, we don't call it that, but I think Sally made a good point about sometimes who's responsible for cleaning the jewelry and making sure that it looks nice. And there's a shop actually not far down the street here that is huge, where you can rent sort of a booth or a shelf or what, and they have different sizes and you pay by the month, and then they keep like 9% of the sale. So you just rent the space, and however much you sell, they take a percentage. And the beauty of that is that they do all the sales tax and pay the utility bill and all, I mean, there's trade-offs to everything. But getting back, that's not what I would consider actually wholesaling. And, some of the thing about the wholesaling is that you're creating a brand, and you're now presenting that brand, and it's not just, what is it about? Is it about it's a pretty piece of jewelry, it's well made, that's it? Or are you designing it around some other kind of narrative, or we use the term unique selling proposition. I mean, what is your thing? And if you think about, like in the US, we have big independent names who have created Todd Reed created this. His whole thing was created around the raw diamonds, and he was the first one to really start using raw diamonds in big numbers. And so I think there's that aspect of it, which is actually kind of cool. It's fun to think about what are you about? I mean, why are we doing this, right?
Yeah, this is something that you can only do when this is something that you can only do when you have a booth or when you have a stall or actually meeting people. You can't do that if you employ the services of someone like an agent or you rent a shelf. You cannot present your USP. It is purely a piece of jewelry, and there's no different from yours to the person's next to you, unless you can actually come across and explain it and say it's how it's made.
Right. So one of the things that I'm looking for as I think, we keep thinking we're going to make this collection and hopefully somebody will buy it, right? I mean, really, this is a partnership between you, the maker, and your retailer. And whether it's a museum store, a boutique, a gallery, a catalog, or even like a dealer who's like a curator for the rich and famous. I mean, there's all kinds of, types of wholesale buyers, and you're creating a relationship with them, and you're deciding who do you want to work with, because this is not just a transaction. This is more like a relationship. And, they're doing the same thing. If you think about it from their perspective, they're trying to find a maker whose story is in alignment with what they're about, and who's going to be around in 6 months, and be able to produce at that level. And we haven't even touched on production that much. So, I mean, there's a lot we could talk about here.
But that's a really interesting point. I was really pleased to find a gallery in Saltaire, which is in Yorkshire. It's a bit of a heritage place, quite a tourist attraction, and the gallery is lovely. The gallery owner really cares about the craftspeople she works with, and she's quite keen to make suggestions. So when we were talking about the pieces she wanted for the gallery, she was saying, "Oh, you don't have a pendant in this collection. Could you do a pendant? Come and look at this pendant." And it's like, I'm not asking you to do something like this, but see what this jeweler has done. How could you do something using your style? And getting me to think about how I can expand what I'm doing. I'm really keen to work with people like that who are very supportive of the whole creative process.
They're very proactive, and perhaps the area that they're in, perhaps sell more pendants. Perhaps they sell rings of a bigger size because the ladies are that sort of way.
Are you saying something about Yorkshire women?
But they would know their customers better than what you actually do. Yeah. No, please, I didn't mean that at all. No.
Well, Andrew is blushing.
I had to turn the radiator down. I've got to take my cardi off. It's getting rather hot in here.
Yeah, I bet it is. Mary, could you go out and come back in, and let's see if that fixes the video?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm missing seeing your face.
But everything that we're talking about obviously applies to being having a booth, obviously, or having a stall and actually conveying the story.
Not letting me hang up.
I can't see you at all, so I can't.
Yeah.
So I can lock the seat and open it. You still there, Mary?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm pressing the little cross to hang up, but it's not letting me hang up.
Are you using the app, Blab app, or are you on the browser?
I'm on my iPad.
Okay. I guess you could.
I could leave and sign back in.
Yeah. Press the home button and swipe it out.
Let's try that. Is she gone? She must be gone. Okay, she'll be right back. I can't close her out, Mark. I couldn't see her at all. There she is.
She's back.
Can you see me now?
You're back. Yeah, we can see you.
Oh, cool.
Yes. Now I see you.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about? I'm looking at my notes here. Andrew, what have we not? Oh, there was one thing that I wanted to mention that I think is interesting.
Okay.
So there's the jewelry industry in the U.S. We've just lost someone who is really a strong figure in our community. Cindy Edelstein passed away very suddenly this week, and I personally am really, really sad about that. But she said something to me that I didn't expect, and I have worked with her a little bit, and she said to me, in terms of the collection itself and what designs you're putting in there, you've got to consider pricing. You got to consider how can I make this many of this thing, and then you've got to consider the narrative. And we talked about all that, but here I am, I've got this catalog that has all this work in it, right? And I look at some of it now and I think, oh, I'm so tired of that. I'm bored. Like, I'm bored with that design, you know? And she said to me, she said, you're going to be, it's okay. Just get over it. You know, it's, you will get so sick of seeing the same pendant 50, 60, 70 times a month. You know,
but with your business model, Ginger, you're actually physically making it from start to finish. When we did our range, we were just purely getting a casting company to cast the pieces for us. Right. So all I was doing was just cutting the sprues off, firing the sprues, polishing it, and that's all I was doing. So right. In one respect, yes, you are creating a range. You only ever make one piece, and you just finish up hundreds of pieces after that, and that's not really right, is it? And then yes, you do become bored because you're not really involved within a creative process. You're just a polisher,
right? And I also think though that I mean, when you look at as an artist, there's a creative element to how you make the collection, not the actual making of the piece, but what you put in it, how they work together. You know, Mary, you're saying you had a spot where a pendant would be a nice fit to complement all these other pieces. That is a creative act, right? Figuring all that out. And so that's one place that I go with it, is just realizing that it's in the making, but it's also in the decisions that you're making about what to sell. And Andrew, you mentioned something else too. You know, one of the things that I did in preparation for Wholesale was to buy lost wax casting equipment and to buy a vacuum caster. And because I did not want to outsource production. A lot of people go into this knowing they're never going to be the ones producing it anyway, because they're going to be paying somebody else to do that. So that's one of the key questions as you might be considering this is, am I still going to hand make everything? Am I going to start casting where I haven't casted before? Or am I going to outsource part or all of the process to someone else? And those are three very different ways to look at it.
It was because we did a few years later, after the sort of the Welsh and Celtic range we did like a basic silver range. But we found that it was taking us so long to finish the pieces of silver and the piece of jewelry that we gave it to a polishers, which happened to be next door to the casters that we used. So the casters took it next door, gave it to the polishers, and then we had the finished product. But their attention to detail was not like ours, and we rejected about 25% of what they were doing because our pieces had lovely straight lines, nice even round curves, and they weren't anything like that. So that was the problem that we had. Again, we weren't in control of the finished product. And in the end, it really wasn't worth us doing it. Mm-hmm. Because the amount of money, then we just simply chucked back at the casters, and 25% of what we were doing. So then we'd have to obviously increase our prices because of that, because we've already paid for it. We've already paid for it to be polished, but we can't sell it. So there's lots and lots of things. As he said, we can talk about producing jewelry to be mass produced, to be hand produced, but hand produced in a way that you can repeat it quickly and easily and repetition on it, but it's still handmade. So all these things have to be considered. Yes, you can outsource a lot of it, but are you in control of it? Is it going to be your handmade piece?
Mm-hmm. One of the things I noticed, and I'm not sure, there seems to be this in the handmade community. There's this sort of looking down on casting, as if it's no longer handmade, or as if it's somehow a way to produce cheap, or I'm here to tell you, none of that is true. It is still now outsourcing may be a different kind of thing, and but casting, in terms of the technical way of looking at it, that is how we make things in multiples in the jewelry.
You are still in control. You are actually physically casting it. It is not a machine. It's not automated. It's still a very hands-on process. And obviously up and down on the lever to get suction and on your casting machine.
Funny. You know, you always have to bring that.
I do. I'm only joking. So, but mistakes are made, aren't they? So you have to factor everything into consideration when you come to wholesale. And then, does the piece that you're making warrant the price that you're putting on it as well?
Right.
Which is very important.
I think there's perhaps another consideration as well, something that certainly happens in fashion design, that a designer will have their haute couture, which is very much the design equivalent of handmade, and then they will have their diffusion range, and you can have a diffusion range that has your name on it, that has your look to it, but is mass produced.
Right.
You're not kidding anybody that this was made by hand. And that's something I think that is reasonable to consider, if that's then going to give you the wherewithal, the sort of the financial stability to then be able to concentrate on doing the handmade without having to worry about how you're going to pay the rent.
Yeah, but then there's lots of things to consider. What do you class as handmade? Do you class a star shape, a flat bit of star shape? Do you class cutting it out by hand handmade? Do you class stamping it out with a hydraulic press handmade? Do you class it being cast handmade? In theory, only the first one is right, because that is the only one that has been handmade. You are still looking at mass production methods, stamped sheets, stamped patterns, cast patterns. Are they then mass produced? Are they not handmade? Or are they hand assembled?
Yeah, and there's the whole thing about findings, chain, stuff like that.
Right.
Ginger, you have some beautiful pieces with handmade chain, but if you're using a really, really fine chain, are you really going to make that yourself?
Right. No, I think that's the point. And I think we use, well, let me put a different spin on this. If you think about it from the way your business is structured, like for me, I think of it in tiers, you know, so the Ginger Meek Allen signature collection is what I'm wholesaling, right? And then those are they handmade? Are they not? There's some of it's cast, some of it's not, you know, it just depends. But those are designs that I repeat. And I design them based on narratives that are kind of universal narratives. Then my bespoke custom tier is up here. The prices are much higher, and those are the one of a kind. So if you want me to personally hand make something for you beginning to end, it only exists one time, that's where you go. You know,
are you wholesaling them?
No, right. So that's the Ginger Meek Allen custom stuff.
Yeah,
the Ginger Meek Allen signature. So that's to your point about what happens in the fashion industry. Same concept, same kind of thing. Just for me, these are all one of a kinds, and these are my collection that is repeated. This is they're all in my body of work, right?
Yeah.
But they're just different levels. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think then there's the consideration of employing people in your workshop as well. So they're working directly under your supervision.
Just look at Fabergé, for instance. His the name is on everything, but how much work did Fabergé actually make?
So at some point you get to the point where if you're going to get an egg that Fabergé made, like personally, you're going to pay a different price than you would if it was just made in his shop, right?
It's like having haircuts with the junior. Sorry,
I don't know what you're talking about.
You pay a cheaper price for the person with the least experience doing it.
Oh, I see. Got it. Okay.
Sorry, that's what I was getting to. Sorry,
yeah. Awesome. Any other questions that we missed? Or Mary, Andrew, can you guys think of some? There is so much we could get into with this topic, but is there something that we haven't touched on that you think is pertinent?
We've talked an awful lot on selling to galleries and selling face to face. I don't have any experience when it comes to that. But my experience was putting together a range of jewelry for an agent then that would sell it on our behalf. And that's when I was going down the line of all I was doing in the end was just polishing castings. That's all I was doing. And then you have people then who don't pay you. And at some stage, many years ago, we were sort of owed £5,000 or £6,000 for people who just haven't paid their bills, and you're constantly having to chase them. And then you threaten the agent by saying, well, you're not going to get your 10% unless they pay within 30 days. And there's lots of things to consider, because as I said, you can buy casting grain for casters to cast the pieces, but not get paid for 6 months. So it's a lot of money that you can be without over a long period of time. And can your business afford that sort of money gone, basically, which is another sort of line you have to go down. And then if you have an agent selling all your pieces of jewelry, how would the agent going to present it? I'm not saying one is right, the booth mentality is right, or the agent's right. It just depends on how you want to get your pieces out there. If you have an agent, he will only go to their set number of shops and go no further. The advantage that you've got with the booth or with the stall or the trade show is that you are there and you're in front of thousands of people from all around the country or even around the world. The booth and the trade shows are very expensive, but you're selling direct to them. So then you don't have to pay your 10% commission, for instance, to the reps or the agents, who then would actually want more commission if they're selling items of a lower price bracket, which we found when we were selling the silver. So it's all these things. And then we had to buy travel cases, you see, to put all the jewelry in for the agents to show. So there's a lot of money that you outlay whichever way you want to wholesale it. And perhaps wholesaling isn't right for everybody. Perhaps you still want to deal on a one-to-one basis with your final client, chatting over the bench and chatting over the designs. It just depends on how you want to promote yourself and how you want your jewelry to be out there in the whole, worldwide, basically. Does that make sense?
That probably links back to your concept of the ideal customer, knowing who your ideal client is. And one person's ideal client may be the person who wants to go into a high street shop and buy whatever her mates is wearing. Pandora. It's not cheap.
It's mass produced,
it's mass produced. It's very, very popular. And if that's the way that you want to go, then you would approach it in a particular way. Agents would probably work really, 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 really well. If what is important to you is the story behind your work and how it's produced, you're going to want to have that kind of direct relationship with the people who are selling it on your behalf.
Yes, unless you have a unique selling proposition like Clogeye, who do the Welsh Gold. They deal with the reps and with the agents, but they because I had a meeting with the director of Clogeye a few years ago, and he said, Andrew, we don't make jewelry anymore. We make stories and we present fairy tales, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
They do make the jewelry, but that isn't the selling. The jewelry, it's the heritage of the Welsh gold in the pieces that they're selling. That there's only limited amount of supply, and the designs are based upon the Cecil oak or the red kite in Wales or whatever, and they sell the story that way. But they're selling it through reps and agents and not necessarily selling it within a booth or within a trade show. So that's quite unique for them as well.
Absolutely. Dee's asked a good question, Mary, of you and me having done our first trade shows. What is your biggest lesson learned from the first show?
There are some things that are just really practical, like comfortable shoes.
Laughing, but oh yes.
Yeah, but in Birmingham, it's 5 days. It's really long, and I want to look happy and interested. I don't want to look like somebody who's in agony. So you do need to think about your own comfort. Rehearsing your story. So, I mean, somebody asked a little while back, what do you say to people when they come up to your stand? What do you say after you said hello? And you do need to have some kind of a story to move into. And, you know, you can see what's caught their eye. But then you need to be able to tell them about it, to work out what is going to interest them, what they're going to hook into. And it might be the inspiration, and it might be the techniques that you've used. It might be the materials you've used. But you do need various stories for different people.
I had some really interesting interactions with buyers. I had two actually. Basically, one of them was very abrupt about it, and she just walked straight up to my table in my booth, and she said, "What's your story?" Like, go. And I'm like, well, okay. So, you know, I answered her question, and she said, "Oh, I haven't heard that one before. Good for you." And she moved on, and I was like, what just happened? And then I had another one who, and we had a new exhibitor meeting. They had a meeting with us for the ones who were there for the first time, and they kind of coached us on, you know, how to have these sales conversations, and so they don't feel like sales conversations and all this. And so one of the things that they told us to say was to ask the buyer about their shop or their store or their venue, whatever it was. And so I did some of that, and some of it I didn't, but there was one lady that I did that, and she kind of like started puffing up, and she's like, "What is it with all you new people asking us about our stores? Did they ask that? You know that I've been a buyer for 24 years, and I know what I'm doing, and you're talking to me, and I can't concentrate, and you need to stop talking." Okay, have at it. I'm here if you have any questions. Enjoy, you know, whatever. And then she actually stuck around and asked a lot of questions. It was actually interested. But then I'm thinking, I don't know if I want you to sell my stuff because you're really mean. But anyway, one of the things I would say is to answer Dee's question about biggest lesson learned is that essentially the shortest way I can say it, and I was kind of coming to this realization on my way to DC, and then at some point in DC it hit me, this is not for wimps. This is way more complex, difficult, and wonderful all at the same time than any other type of marketing or sales that I've ever done. It is really, it's a lot. It's big. And so wholesale, I think there are some people who may just be wired for it. But I do think you have to be really grounded in your work, what you do, what it's about, and be really confident in that. Because this is a big arena. I'm not discouraging anybody who wants to give it a shot, but I'm just saying, you know, do your research and know what it is that you're walking into.
So did you take it personally when people looked at your work and said, I could do better than that, or I wouldn't do it that way, or were people really nice to you?
Most of them were really nice. Most of them had nice things to say and said, "Oh, I've never seen anybody set a stone like that." Or, "Gosh, I had one buyer who picked up one of my lockets and she was playing with it and moving it. She said, "This is tight. I mean, this is like," I could tell she knew something about metalsmithing, and she had really nice things to say. And most of it was like that. It really was. There's always the one you always remember store though, and the story you always tell is the person that yelled at you, right?
I think
So,
it might be different in the UK. It's mainly English people, and we're terribly, terribly polite usually. So if what I was seeing at IGL is if people aren't interested in your stuff, they're not going to come up to you. They're not going to engage, and that's absolutely fine. So the people who've stopped have stopped because something's caught their eye and they're interested. So you have that point of contact, and then people are generally they're really nice. They're polite.
I'm really annoying. I am whenever I go up to somebody. Not you, Mary. I'm very complimentary.
Don't you come anywhere near
because I was chatting to a few of the designers, and I just walking around and I say, oh, being very blunt. Do you make these? And they go, yes. I say, oh, do you make them by hand or do you get them cast? Or never get them cast. What, in this country? And I'm quite blunt, and they say, no, we have them mass produced. Oh, she's gone. And I just say, well, okay, well, how would you get that cast? And they tell me, well, have you thought about doing it in a different way? And I can see them getting really frustrated and upset with me and just telling me to bugger off, basically, because I'm interfering.
The eye rolling when my used to be when my daughters would want to go shopping, and I always want to go to the jewelry store just because, and I walk up to the counter and I'll ask I'm just like doing market research, right? I just want to see how the salesperson treats me, what they say. And it's so hard, let's say I say, may I see that ring? And here you go. And then the first thing I do is I turn it over and I'm doing this.
That's exactly what I do whenever we have any reps in. The first thing you do
you're a jeweler.
is look at the back of something, because you can always tell.
Exactly. Well, we are at 88 minutes, Andrew.
Yes.
We like to keep it to 90. We started a little bit late with technology issues, but is there any last words of wisdom or inspiration from me? Is Mary, are you still there?
Mary.
I'm still here, yeah.
We can't see you.
Have I disappeared again?
You've just disappeared again, Mary. It's okay.
You're just a voice in the dark.
Yeah.
What would you say? Inspiration or wisdom to share? Anybody?
It's something that we can talk about, and when it comes to designing your pieces, as we've already said, design your pieces for mass production or designing your pieces for one-off, making things easier to construct things. There's so much that you've got to think about. Stone setting, if you want stone setting it, what's the best way, the easiest way? Can you get those stones in all different sizes? Can you get those stones that size all the time? There's just, it's a complete different way of thinking to saying, well, there's the metal, there's the ring, there's the product, or there's the stone, there's the product, as opposed to saying, well, okay, here's the metal, there's the stone. I've got 100 stones, I've got 100 pieces of metal. I've got to put it all together. And it's just a completely different way of thinking. And is it going to be the right weight? Can you make it lighter? Can you make it heavier? What's the price points? It's something that you really got to look into, and really, I don't think you can take this very lightly. As you said, it's a completely different way of selling, whether you're selling via an agent or whether you're selling via a booth. It's just something you just can't say, well, I like making jewelry, I'm going to wholesale it, because it's not as simple as that. And the pricing has got to be right for the market, for the product, and everything. It's a complete minefield. It is.
And to Mark's question, is wholesale the way to go for growth? I think it depends. I mean, it depends on and that's one of the questions is, how big do you want to be? How big do you want your brand to be? If you want to be really, really big, then you got to do some wholesaling.
How much in control do you want to be?
Right. And how important is it to you to always be at the bench?
Yes. Because
a lot of times I think what happens is, when production has to get higher and higher and higher, and you have to hire people, whether you're hiring bench people or you're hiring, customer service people or an accountant, or hopefully you already have
all the paperwork, chasing up different galleries, different accounts, chasing
right.
for money, putting together
the
the orders.
admin part. I mean, there's always, when you grow, there are new things that become more than one person can or wants to do or is wired to do. And that's one of the first things I've done is figure out, I got to have an accountant, because I don't even want to be like she does all that, and I know it's being done. I know it's being done well, and I'm in it, but I'm not the one punching the numbers. Do you know what I mean? So, and you're grinning, and I know why. But anyway, I think it's something that's worth looking at, and I do think that one of the whole points of being an independent entrepreneur and being in a creative entrepreneurship, in other words, you're making money with something you create yourself. You want to design the business in the way that's authentic for you, and not just think that, oh, well, if I'm going to be this big brand, then I have to be this big brand the way everybody else is the big brand. There are points along the way where you get to make decisions so that you can set the business up in a way that's wired for you and that is right for you. Otherwise, you might as well work for somebody else.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
good point.
my opinion.
Very good. Yeah. Good point.
Are you still there, Mary?
I'm still here. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. No, I was thinking that is a really good point. Why are you in this? What are you wanting to do? Do you want to make shed loads of money, or do you want to make jewelry? And there's going to be trade-offs.
Right.
There's always trade-offs. So if what you're passionate about is being at the bench, then how are you going to structure your business to enable you to spend as much time as possible at the bench? And you're going to have to get really good at delegating all the other stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. We have a question about how do you know what markets want for your products? What is the step you take? I think it has to do with first knowing what you do, like knowing what your brand is about. And then you look for parts of the market that are in alignment with that. So like, for example, like I was saying earlier about the market research, about the bait and tackle shop. I'm never going to try to sell my work in bait and tackle because it's totally different.
If you do design a nice range of fishing floats or hooks, what a fantastic place to sell it.
If I designed a fish, it wouldn't look like a fish.
Oh, no. Fishy. You see, you're not being creative enough. There is a gap in the market there for the gift for the fisherman to take back to the person at home who is hopping mad because he's going to be late and he's going to be wet and smelly and horrible. No, I think you could do something there.
There's going to be a market out there for whatever you make, and you have to get out there and do all the hard work of finding that market. And that's the secret. And if we could all go directly to that one person who would buy every bit of jewelry, we'd all be millionaires.
Right.
And sometimes it's about just being really open to the opportunities that are out there. Like the lass that came to see me a little while back, wanting some very specific jewelry. It is jewelry, but it's jewelry that stops her fingers from hyperextending. So they're actually medical devices.
Yeah.
And I've realised if she wants this sort of thing, there's going to be other people who want that too. So that's a whole new market area that I need to start networking in and investigating. And that was it was complete by chance. But it just so happened that I did have those skills.
Right. And so when something like that presents itself in your, to you, you have the opportunity to then say, I kind of like that idea. I think I'll explore that. Or you might say, go make Andrew do it. Right? I mean, you know when there are times when we when the new direction we generate, and then other times opportunities come to us. Things that you wouldn't have thought of, right? You probably would never have thought about anti-hyperextension jewelry.
Absolutely not. No, that's. I used to do orthotics about 30 years ago. I never thought I'd do it again.
Mm-hmm. So you have background in it.
Yeah.
Ah, interesting. Cool. All right, everybody. Well, I think we've touched on a lot here. Like
a lot to think about, actually.
A lot to think about, and Andrew and I would love to hear from you if you have thoughts on this. If you are part of our metalsmithing mastermind, feel free to go into the group there and share your thoughts on Wholesale. Or if you're not, you can find both of us on Twitter. And we would love to hear from you there as well. So yeah, I think it's been real. It's been great. It's
been interesting. And having Mary here was absolutely brilliant.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me.
It gave us a completely different take on a lot of things that it's been really good. Thank you, Mary. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, both of you.
And
thank you.
And I'll pop along to your stall, and perhaps we can do a few scopes as well while we're there.
That would be lovely. That would be great.
And I'm going to try to scope a little more from Philadelphia than I did in DC. I was really, really overwhelmed, honestly, with all that it was to be there. And so since this will be my second time around doing something like this, maybe I'll be more able to manage, and that way I can share the experience with you guys a little better.
Please, be lovely. Be fantastic.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for being in here. We've had a great time. Cheers. Good night, good evening, good afternoon. And Andrew, we're blabbing once a month, so we'll be back sometime in March. We don't have our date yet, but watch out. Follow us both on Blab specifically, and you'll get notified when we schedule the next Blab. And of course, we'll always announce it on Twitter as well. So
we sure do.
Thanks again.
And
Thank you very much,
everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Take care, everybody.